Scoot up a little bit. Hi, hello, what is up? You know the one thing? Oh, hi. I'm Fire Lotus. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that bell icon so you get all the notifications of when I go live and or post, which is going to be 10 times more frequent than I've ever been before. So, yeah, hyper fixating on this bitch. Anyways, I'm really tired of the fucking Florida weather right now. Like, I'm officially over it, done with it, tired of it. But anyways, um, for one, I did want to talk about now. Before I talk about this in any way, shape, or form, I'm not trying to take away from the actual tragedy that happened, but doing weather magic on a larger scale, which nobody has done that I'm aware of, but it's the prime example of the flooding that happened in Texas. They literally got a summer's worth of rain in 24 hours. Hello. So that was what I've always talked about when it comes to doing weather magic in a collective and or a whole. It can become very complex. Now, doing it at your house, that's different. But I will state storm magic can be extremely fucking not even tricky. Good morning. I'm trying to think of the word. It's not even tricky. It's touch and go, if you will. Because if you add too much, you either get too much or you get something that you were not prepared for. Which is one of the reasons. The only time, and there's something that it's kind of like I'd say base magic. I'm trying to come up with these terms that way I can stop like magic becomes slightly more structured because there's a lot of umbrella terms that we have out there. So like base magic, magic that almost anybody could do. It was one of the very first things that I actually learned. Hello, hello. Which is whistling up the moon. I mean, whistling up the moon. Come here, moon. No, whistling up the wind. And it actually works. Now there are certain qualities that you kind of already need to have, and that's with almost any type of spells or magic revolving like weather and things like that. If there's already a very, very small percentage of rain, like say 10% in your area, that's the perfect time to do something like that because it's already there. All the ingredients that you need is already there. All you have to do is to tap into it. So whistling up the wind. Now, the lore that I learned behind this, because before I say this, yes, there are. I don't know if it's native or not. I know it's in them. They have a tool that can do the same thing, but I learned it more on a like British style, which is basically sailors, fishermen, all different types. They could either whistle up the wind or they could tie a knot in the wind. And originally, I did do this with like a piece of necklace where I just kind of swing it around, and or I would visualize me swinging something around because normally you're supposed to kind of do this at a higher elevation, like on a cliff. Um, but if you have a high rise porch or if your porch is above the ground, you can also do it. You can also do this sitting in your car because all you're doing is whistling up the wind. Literally, though, you whistle, and as you whistle, you visualize the wind just kind of that perfect breeze that you need on that really, really hot day. Now, be slightly careful with that because, like I said, the weather is finicky when it comes to like fucking the wind, all of that. It's very complex. Even with, I made a couple of videos on my main TikTok about like how the storms that have recently been coming over us, the thunder sounds fucking weird. Now I know from a meteorologist standpoint because I did research on how complex storms are, like depending on the temperature, depending on like if you see a storm that is really, really green, a lot of people associate that with tornadoes are going to come. Primarily, yes, those storms do have a higher chance of producing tornadoes, but one of the main reasons is there's a lot of moisture in the storms, and thanks to the sun shining in our atmosphere and the way light reflects light, it turns it green. It means there's a lot of moisture in there. What did I miss? So far, we're talking about weather magic, which not a lot of people talk about online because I mean, yeah, it can be like stricken. Speaking of weather magic, I don't know how I'm going to collect this, but I think it was this past weekend. Me and my partner were out on the property, and one of our trees had been struck by lightning. And that's amazing because you can use wood that has been struck by lightning for multiple different types of thing in your practice, primarily because it still has that psychokinetic energy of lightning. So just like trying to bottle hurricane water, knock on wood, we do not have any this year, and if we do, they go nowhere near Florida. you basically you have to set the intention. And I know I hate saying that term because some people are just like, no, that's what magic is, setting the intention. No, it's not. It's strategy. It's complete chaos and complete organization all at the same points. It's alchemy. To a degree it's alchemy because you're transmuting energy. But if you don't have the right intentions when you collect that rainwater, or even when you use hurricane water, well, you could basically kind of summon a storm system because, again, it has that psychokinetic energy of the storm. It's just like collecting seawater. No, collecting seawater, pouring it out in your yard, you're not going to cause a typhoon that's going to like fucking completely flood your yard, depending on where you are on the coast. But it's things like this that what we mean. It's the exact same thing of respectfully collecting different types of graveyard dirt and or different dirt from all over the world at special places, at haunted places, depending on your fancy. And then bringing it back to your house and connecting to the energy. But as you're connecting to the energy, you're also connecting to the prime source of that energy of the four-way or the lineature. I know I said that weird. The in-between space that you're doing that dirt. So you can also bring that home, open that space up, and it's also still connected to the main, say, crossroads that you got it from. But with that, and the reason it can be, you have to be delicate with it, because if you don't do it the right way, and everybody's going to be different. It depends on the vibes you feel and how you do your own practice with this. You're not wanting to open a doorway, right? You're not wanting to open one of those. You're just wanting to do a closed source line. So there's a line connecting here to there that you can tap into, but nothing else can. You don't want anything to come this way. That's how you're going to get, well, one hell of a haunted house. Now, the more science people out there, if you have property and you want to do something like that, that's what you do. You go to some of the world's haunted locations, and you respectfully collect dirt, bring them back to that location, to that house, that property, and then you energetically just open the connection. And boom. Now, I would not do that at certain locations. For an example, the location in California, the Winchester house, Zach, the Ghost Adventures and shit, when they did that, when they opened the portals or experimented with opening the portals, they basically made the house sick. And you have to think of that specific property is it's very, very unique. Whether you believe in the store where the lore or legend behind it, where there were actual spirits, that basically any spirit that was shot down by the Western stuff? What the fuck, brain? The fucking gun. The shotgun is one of the most used guns, if not the most used in, out in the West. But basically, a psychic told them, or told her, that she needed to build, and just build. That's why I always recommend divinations before doing magic. That way you get more info about the consequences of your actions. Yes! Now, I do want to say something with that, because I love that. It can be slightly complex, depending on how you view doing divinations. So a lot of people, and this is not directed at you, a lot of people, when they hear the term divination, they automatically think of predicting the future. Tarot cards, depending on how read, they're not necessarily there to predict the future as much as just to give you insight on how a certain situation could go. The reason that this is complex is because some people believe that the future is objective, which means you even getting that reading could completely change the reading that you just got. Sprouts wants to jump right into portals and astral traveling and don't understand how dangerous those things are and how much it can take from you even if you're standing. Yes, 100% with that. It can be extremely dangerous. Now, before anybody wants to open a portal, you can find portals naturally outside. Now, be careful with them and read the energy, read the room, because if you come across the wrong portal, let's say if it has something to do with the Fae or spirits in general, land spirits, they can fuck you up. As in, like they said, it can affect you mentally, it can affect you physically. And we've all been to those locations, or at least I know I have, or at least been around certain locations to where you go there and it's automatically you just get sick. And it's not like you're vomiting like fucking pea soup or anything, but like you feel uneasy and it shifts. And that's what we mean because I used to ghost hunt and I hate. Hello, and I'm Fire Lotus. But hello, welcome. When you go to certain locations, or when I used to go, I hate saying ghost hunting, messing around with portal, or fucking going to haunted locations to see how haunted they were. There we go. It was very, very weird because if you've ever heard the term, wow, the energy's thick in here, It's literally what we mean by that is when we first go there, the energy just feels like a normal room, a normal house. And then all of a sudden it goes from that to it feels like you're walking in the middle of a swamp in the middle of July. You physically feel the air around you, and it means that it's spiritually active. Now, another interesting thing too, if you start to investigate haunted locations, especially if they've been around for hundreds of years or 20, 30, 40 years, true enough, a lot of paranormal people who are very new to it don't properly know how to go somewhere without pissing them off, because it's not like you can just go somewhere, piss a spirit off, and then as soon as you leave, they just go back. No. But an interesting thing that a lot of paranormal people have experienced, and even paranormal witches, however you want to word that, is the fact that you'll go and there'll be, like, say, the residual spirits or certain spirits that were just there, right? And then all of a sudden, say 10 years later, you go back and there's another hot spirit, as in, I don't want to use the term negative, but it's a hot spirit that almost becomes a bully. Another spirit moves in, and basically the other spirits kind of like, they don't really run from it, but they flee from it. And it's interesting because you have to ask the question, well, where did the other spirit come from unless it was physically drawn to that location? The question is, why? Bobby Mackey's is a perfect place. Well, no. Bobby Mackey's was fucked from the beginning. Lore-wise, I'm trying to think of a property that is well known that kind of happened at. I know a few hot spots where the energy makes me feel very dizzy. Yes, exactly. It makes you feel dizzy. I'm hoping very soon, within the next month, I will be able to, actually, my partner will have a day off, and we'll be able to get to go out there to the cemetery that I went to. Um, it has a portal in the middle of it, but we didn't know that it was a portal until it kind of sucked us in. And what I mean by sucking us in was me, my partner, and somebody else came with us. That's in my partner's family, and we're all gifted and sensitive in our own little ways, if you will. Knowing that my father-in-law, he's a very, very devout Christian man, but he himself knows that there is a lot of shit out there when it comes to spirituality. So, like, I did what I normally do when I go to a cemetery after taking the proper steps of being able to, go in there and not piss anybody off, or upset any spirits there. And I kind of just started walking around. I was letting spirit guide me. I was kind of turning my body into a compass, if you will. And I just kind of started walking. Well, at the same time, they're also splitting up, but we all go different ways. And then all of a sudden, boom, we all three of us at the exact same time almost sync up, and we look at each other and we're like, what the fuck? And as we got to the center of it, because the actual ground kind of went down a little bit into like this small little bowl, or this like shallow bowl, and in the very center of it, the perspective looking out looked weird because it almost looked like there were a perfect circle of trees around it, when in reality there was not. But it was the actual airflow, because again, this was around, I want to say this is around like Father's Day, of this year. So it was kind of fresh in spring, fallish. And fucking all of a sudden, that was when we got to the center of it, there was just, it almost felt like, if you've ever walked up on a natural spring, that cold air that you sense coming from one, it felt exactly like that. And we haven't been able to go back since. But I want to, because at the very end of that cemetery plot, there is this weird grave that was freshly put there, but there were burn remains, like somebody had a fire or they burned something in front of it. And we also all got the same vibe of what that was, which is when we kind of started staying clear of it. And this cemetery, it dates back to the Civil War, so it's extremely old. Also fun, and some portals can alter perceptions of time. There's one near me that does that. You'll be there when it feels like 10 minutes, and it's actually 4 or 5 hours. Yes, I've had an experience with that. I get a tingle in my spirit, and I feel... Oh, I love it. I grew up in a house with a portal and several spirits. I hated it. There was one property that we used to live on, and technically the property we're living on now does the same thing with the time. And the crazy thing is I don't know if it's just the property or if it's me that's causing it. And I say me that's causing it because the same thing happened on our old property when I had moved down there, but it had already also, the property in itself had the same thing, where my father-in-law came and stayed with us for like 2 weeks. And he was here one night, and we were talking, sitting around the table, and he's like, well, you know what? He's like, I've only been here like a day or two. And me and my partner looked at each other, and we looked at him, and we were like, you've been here 2 weeks. And he kind of like stopped to have to actually calculate how long he had actually been here. And it's so weird because it's like time doesn't exist here. And it affects me tremendously. That's one of the reasons I get my days and fucking months and all different types of shit fucked up. But the other property did the same thing. It was just like once you entered the property, it was just like a dome almost of just weirdness. Now, there are other places here in Florida that you can randomly go through them. My father-in-law is the one that brought it up to me first. And I was like, on the way out here to this property, they were like, they took a shortcut, which eventually became a route that we normally take. And normally out here, depending on how fast you drive, it takes about 45 minutes depending on where you're at from the biggest city near us, right? His trip took 2 hours. So he did it again. It took 35 minutes. And I was like, okay, well, we haven't really had that. And then me and my partner, had started having experiences where we travel, we're very routine people. So, like, we go to the same places depending on the seasons of our lives. And there were multiple moments of where, like, it would literally go from, we're going here to here, and that's supposed to take an hour. And then there would be like 20 or 30 minutes missing from it, just gaps. And it's weird because I don't know what it is. I have a portal in my basement that can distort you and you lose track of time. What are your thoughts? Have a barrier set around it. Yes, definitely set up the barrier. I want to experiment here with opening a portal. The question is, though, when you open a portal, do you actually know where you're opening it up to? And or to see if you could open a vortex. That's what I want to know. Because a lot of witches, I haven't really heard that. I've heard witches that don't really make witchy content, but they make like spooky, like urban legend, weird places. They've talked about them a lot. But I want to know what causes it. Now, here in Florida, we have the aquifer, which means we have running water on top of sandstone, on top of lime rock. So that's 3 different things right there that can fuck with energy. Whether that is retaining energy and then randomly, just like kind of a random earthquake, shooting it back off, which is like the Ghost of Gettysburg. A lot of people believe that's what some of the sightings that they see are. It's not even residual spirits as much as it's like the land has been stained and it creates this loop. So you're seeing the same spirit do the exact same thing, walk the same straight line. It's very weird, and there's not enough research about this shit. I considered opening a portal at my ex-husband's house, but ultimately decided not to. You can set it up to open a specific location. Okay, see, I want to do this. I like to open a vortex, but I'm not educated enough to try and purposely do. Same with portals. Has anyone considered how would it set up an altar or sacred space by a portal? Hello, and yes, I would love that. And honestly, I've never attempted to open a vortex. I've dealt with vortexes and I've dealt with portals before, and then I have this own thing to where if I stare at a space long enough. Now, this did heighten when I was on ADHD medicine, and I fell down a fucking rabbit hole online of how ADHD medicine can actually bring this shit out in people. And it makes sense. It's quiet. If it works properly, it's quieting your mind. It's slowing your mind down to match it with your body's energy. So it makes sense, but I can stare off into a space, and I can still do it to this day. It's just not as intense. And, like, as of right now, say there's just, like, this, like, clear fucking sheet, right? Like a plastic sheet, right? I can stare at that, and in the center of it, it's almost like somebody drops a rock in it. So it starts the rippling effect, and the rippling effect outward in perfect circles, but it looks like it's almost like water doing it. But instead of water being like this, it's like this. I know this is confusing. I need to draw a diagram of it. But the longer and more intense that I stare at it, the more vibrant the actual ripples get. And I've never pushed that to the extreme because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But I also know it's not I don't think it's normal for people to randomly see shit like that. That makes sense. I was actually doing it yesterday, and my friend nudged me and told me to stop messing with the energy while I was getting tattooed. Oh, I love that! I had a similar experience yesterday, not with that, but my partner, for the very first time, looked at me and was like, calm down. I was like, why? He's like, because our fucking lights are flickering in the house. and the storm had already passed, so it like wasn't that. I did not tell him that I don't think it was me, but he legit had a freaked look on his face when the second time that it happened, because I was standing right up under the light bulb that just kind of got really, really bright and then just kind of went really, really like to the normal color. Um, it's weird though, because I cannot find any type of research online except for the rabbit holes of Reddit about other people doing it, and I want to know why nobody is talking about it. Other moments like that. Yes, it definitely like it brings that witchiness out. As much as I hate stating that, it really does. It brings that front and center. But really and truly in magic, and when it comes to performing magic, confidence is key anyways. Confidence and authority. Now what I mean by that is, like I've said before, if you're going to cleanse a hot spirit out of your house, and you go about it with just like, get out, they're going to be like, no. But if you go to them and like kind of throw your mother voice or like the parent voice or teacher voice at them and basically know that this is your property, then normally they're like, all right, I'll get the fuck out. My friend, so happy to see you. Give me a smile. Hello. Altars near portals amplifies the portal activity. See, I want to test this now, and I know how. Go to a place or find a place that already has a vortex and or a portal. Safely collect some of that dirt, bring it back, and then set up an altar right next to it and or put that on the altar, and then basically connect to the energy to see if you could open it. Now you could take this a step further by getting 4 rods, 4 sticks, wrapping copper around them and sticking them into the earth while around the actual dirt and altar that you're trying to do. Due to the fact that you're already connecting to the earth's energy, but you're also going to be able to connect to the earth's energy using that specific dirt signature, portal signature, and then see if you can tap into that and just kind of, boom. My question is, though, what starts one to begin with? Because, like, I highly doubt there's a bunch of people hundreds of thousands of years ago just going around, like, making ritualistic things and then all of a sudden opening a portal. Now my brain's going, and I have no way of researching this. Because, I mean, there's a spot on not on our property, but close to me, I've made videos about it, where I live like a mile and a half away from a mailbox, and it's straight up dirt road. Like, bumfuck middle of nowhere dirt road. That intersect with other dirt roads and other dirt roads. But there's this one section to where it looks like there are mounds that are natural. It doesn't like somebody bulldoze them. They look natural in mounds, which is not normal in Florida. That mainly signifies one specific thing. But right in between one of them, and again, I have video of it, I'll upload on here. Like, I noticed something was kind of standing there. I could feel it and almost see it without actually seeing it. I ignored it, which is what you do when you're walking in the woods and you sense something. Ignore it, because the first time you bring acknowledgement to it, it's not going to leave you alone depending on what it is. I'm not saying they're all bad or anything like that. It's just in general. A lot of the spirits and other things that are out there, they're not used to people actually like directly looking at them. It's like the show Ghost Whisperer, when she made the mistake of looking at the actual spirit and the spirit's like, ha, you see me. It's the exact same thing. And a lot of them are just curious. But I go to the mailbox, and on the way back, the energy in one area of the woods just completely shifted. And you can feel it on the video. You can see it. It shifts. And I was like, all right, that was weird. And then out of the corner of my eye, I start seeing something that looks like it's following me in the woods. It's just this, it looks like something passed through a tree. And it followed me all the way here. When I got back here, that night I either heard whistling or I heard this other weird ass sound that I've never heard it around here before. I heard it twice after that, and then it just kind of stopped. But it was no animal that I've ever heard of. It was no bird. It was no owl that I've ever heard around this property. And I still don't know what it is. A lot of people in the comments stated that it was either fae, land spirits, which I kind of can see fae and land spirits being the same. But depending on who you ask, they may be a different thing, because it is slightly different. But it eventually went away. It like stopped following me and everything like that. What the fuck? Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what? So yeah, there is a lot of weird shit here, and one of the reasons I'm talking about this is because depending on what side of internet, any side of the internet you fall on, you're going to get a lot of scare tactic videos like "Don't mess with the Fae." Just use your instincts. That's straight up. When it comes with the Fae, when it comes to spirits, land spirits, hot things, anything like that, use your intuition, use your instincts. And even if you have not fully tapped into those intuitions, your body will know. It's the exact same feeling when you were a little kid, and there's always that one house in almost every neighborhood that just gives you the like shivers. AKA, it's spiritually active. It is energetically active, whether that's spirits, ghosts, demons, and the list goes on of what it could be. But our body's naturally attuned to it because they're frequencies. They're different types of frequencies. Um, and just listen to that. So, like, if you go somewhere and the further you go into the woods, you're starting to get sicker, you're starting to get weaker, you're almost feeling like you're coming down with the flu, turn the fuck back around, depending on what you're trying to do. And always, for the love of God, in some way, shape, or form, cleanse yourself before getting in your car and say whatever is following you cannot follow you. Basically, as in you get in that car, you're shutting that down, and they are staying right where the fuck they are. Because you can get all different types of shit brought to your house. Now, when I say that, I'm not going to say that I'm not talking about demons or anything like that. More along the lines of tricksters, parasites, other things like that. Some are human or were human, others were never human. When it comes to these types of beings, there are a lot of fucking different terms to use for them. I kind of wish when things were just more simpler. Spirit, non-human, human. Anyways. But yeah, always wear some type of protection, whether that is a medallion or a cross, a pentagram, it doesn't matter. Whatever you find protection in. And obviously, yes, crystals can protect you as well, but I personally would not. Technically depends on your own faith behind it, but I personally would not just have like a crystal hanging around my neck as the only protection. Whether if you have to get a pin out of a bag and draw runes and sigils on you, that works 100% as well. When it comes to anything like astral traveling, you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to make sure, for one, you are very connected to your body even as you're astrally traveling. And for two, make sure that you have protection on the astral side to make sure nothing can attack you and or come back with you. Because when you get a fucking astral parasite, they're extremely hard to actually pick up, and they're also extremely hard to actually get rid of, depending on what it is. Most parasites like that, they'll like cause certain things to get worse, or you may experience depression for the first time in your entire life. It's because of that. They're literally sucking the energy and life out of you. It's not gonna like kill you or anything like that. And there are multiple ways of trying to sense them. Normally, it does take either like a energetic cleanse, like sound cleansing. You could even technically do it with water, but if you're going to do a shower cleanse, I would actually use a couple of herbs. Those herbs can be anything. It is not, you do not have to go out and buy a specific pre-made blend unless you just want to do that. You totally can. But a lot of flowers like rose petals, really great for it. Rosemary, things like that. And when you take a spiritual shower, try to air dry. Don't use shampoo unless it's like a spiritual soap or something like that. Nothing chemical. Do that afterwards or before. And then try to air dry to let the oil and the actual mixture of whatever herbs you just put on you actually sink in. And contrary to popular belief, some people will not like this, but I fucking love it because it does work. The episode of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, when they were talking about when she gets hexed and she jumps in the shower and she's like, if I am truly hexed today, let the water wash it away. That is 100% accurate. You can totally use that. Because in itself, yes, it can be a spell, but you're doing that specific wording is what you're specifically trying to do with water. And if you have well water, you can naturally tap into the healing processes of that well and said / water. So you can intensify that times like 2. And then, yeah, just do things like that. Now, obviously, you're not going to want to cleanse yourself every single time, depending on what you do. It's kind of the interesting conversations that we've had online about your altar. After, eventually your altar is going to get dusty and have incense, remains, herbs, all wax, all stuff all over it, right? My question is, do you just like cleanse it, reset everything, and then the stuff that you swept off, do you throw it away? I keep mine. My cauldron, because I just burn things on it. I don't make stews or anything like that, liquid. I've never cleaned it. I don't clean the inside. And if I do, I'll scrape it and it goes into one place. Why? Because it has our energy in it. It has that excess spell residue in it. If you were to mix that together, like say, for the people who do baneful workings every now and then, or just in general, collect all of that, put it into a pot. You do love magic, put all that into a pot. Protection magic, all of that into a pot. So you got 3 different things right now that you can grind up. Now, of course, I would slightly take the wax out of it and just get the powdered, but you can grind that down into a powder and then use that in your practice. One of my friends and a chaos witch that I interviewed, they call it magic gunpowder. There are multiple different types of names for it, but it has your own residue and energy in it. Like when I see witches cleanse things that they're taking off their altar, I don't understand that, because to me, in my practice, that would be me cleansing my energy off of it. Now, obviously, if it's something new, yes, I'm going to do some type of, making sure that it doesn't have anything attached from the outside world into it. But it also, depending on how you set your wards up, they can do that automatically of you just showing back up on the property. Like when you come home from the store, you get out of your car, depending on where your wards are, it's like you're walking through a field, so therefore they can easily remove that shit depending on what it is. So that's another thing to think about when you're setting up your wards. You can never really have too much wards, but you can have too much protection. And I've talked about this before. Your mailman's not going to be able to find you. The pizza people, ambulance, fire department, all of that may have a harder time of finding you because you've cloaked yourself so well. And in reality, that's kind of what wards are. They're an extra line of protection, kind of like a barbed wire fence before you get to the electric fence. Yeah, there we go. But it's the same, or switch that. It's like an electric fence before you get to the barbed wire fence. But too much of it can be a bad thing, because you basically are just going to be invisible. Which, I mean, if that's your forte, that's your forte. Like, if I ever get enough of money up to just move into the mountains and just, like, live off the land, build me a house or rent me a house or whatever, that's what it's going to be like. It's just going to be a giant void, except for unless you're in it. So. And if you haven't already, the last 2 episodes of Southern Fried Witch, one was released Saturday and then Sunday. Saturday? I think it was Saturday and Sunday. I may be getting last weekend mixed up with this. But go check their website. Go check the podcast out, Southern Fried Witch. The last 2 episodes, mwah, I love it, because it's a different perspective on 2 different things. Magic, and what is magic really, and then wards themselves, but from a country witch's side. It's very, very interesting, and they also talk about a lot of things that I grew up being told in a non-magical sense. Like if a garden spider and or a banana spider or the orb web spider creates a nest, or it creates a web from the ground to your house, and it's connected to your house, that's protection. So all the spiders you have on your property, you can use that as protection, because what do? They sit and wait for things to fly into their nests, or to nest. Why do I keep saying nest? To fly into their cobwebs and get tangled. You can use a lot of things that's already around you. Whether you're living on your own property, an apartment in New York, you can still use things around you that are naturally around you. Although it would be very... I don't think I'd be able to live in New York or a major city like that, just because I'm used to living out in the country. And I've lived in cities before. I prefer the country. Or midway in between. I'm trying to think of other things that I can talk about specifically about this to give any more advice to. Oh, try to make sure, depending on how you want it, if you move from your property, to either A, remove the wards, or you could just put them there in general. But witches jars or anything like that, if you actually bury them on your property, if at any point in time you're going to move, try to make sure you put it in a place to where you can bury it, like dig it back up and take it with you. Not that all witches do that. Now, I do know some witches that they'll just make a protection jar or a witch's jar for the property that they're currently living on, and then when they move, they kind of discard it, and then create an entire different one. That depends on completely you. But But yeah, just if you go to a haunted location, because I've talked to people via email that they needed help because like they didn't even do anything magic, they just went by and or went to a haunted location. And with us, especially if you practice magic or energy manipulation openly, as in you've been doing it, or if you're extremely sensitive, we're kind of like beacons to them anyways. We're a flicker in the light, if you will. Depending on what you're doing, you become a flicker to a straight up fucking lighthouse. So be careful of that and be wary of that. Not stating that everything that goes bump in the night is trying to kill you, harm you, or anything like that, but you can stumble around some spirits you don't want anything to do with. Or fuck, maybe you do and that's exactly what you're looking for. Completely depends on you. Just know that working with spirits like that, without actually being the physical devil, it would be like making a deal with the devil. You don't know how that's going to play out. And yes, you can actually in Southern Conjure, the reason it's called conjuring is because we conjure things. We conjure spirits. What we mean by that is spirits can aid you in your practice. Just like spirit guides can aid us, or gods and goddesses can aid us in our practice. You just have to be very, very respectful of them. Do not try to go in and being like a Zach, where like you're just going to bully them into a jar. That's not going to work. And if it does work, I guarantee you it's not going to play out the way that you want it to. And the reason I'm talking about this is that I don't hear enough witches talk about spirits, working with spirits. You can trap spirits. Not that I don't think anybody ever would, but say you had a nasty energy or you had a hot energy on your property, there are ways to trap that in quartz. I specifically say quartz. Other people can also use other crystals, or it has been said that it can. I just like saying I like the idea of just having a box of crystals with negative spirits in it. And this is a joke, but you can totally do this too. Collect them, and then give them off to people that have a horrible life, that have had a horrible life, as in they make everybody else's life worse. Gift them a crystal. I almost did that to a property. I'm not saying that live on air. A specific person that is still in my life that I did not like, I almost released something on their property, but I didn't. I was young, I was naive, and I thought before I did it. But yes, you can do things like that. And I don't know why that's no longer really talked about, even in books. As I say that, I'm like going over all the books in my head that I have. Yeah, no, what is up with that? Why are books getting I don't want to say softer. No, softer. I don't know. It's just now. Obviously, there are some books that are not soft. The Blood and Bone book, for example, that is not a soft book. Mountain Conjuring, that is not a soft book. That is an advanced book, especially when it comes to the spirit communication thing. So yeah, there are different degrees of books that you can find out there. It just depends on what they're actually talking about and or going over. And like I said, you can set your property up like mine. It's a spiritual bathhouse. And there are rules. Not really rules, but there are certain energies that are not allowed here. And if they are allowed here, they can be allowed on the property, but they come nowhere in the house. And my partner has validated that in more ways than one. Because he gets up around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So normally, depending on the time of the year it is, it's mostly still dark outside when he gets up. And he's like, there have been multiple moments where I've walked out to my car and something has ran past me, or kind of, it felt like something was running up behind him, and then as soon as he started to turn around, it just stopped. So there are definitely things on my property. But it's also really cool. Because, for one, I mean, I would love that. Like, imagine if you were a spirit wandering, you had nowhere to go, and then all of a sudden, boom, you have somewhere to just chill out. You know, just don't scare anybody. Plus, that also helps when I do readings or anything like that. It helps the spirits be able to get through to me faster. Have I ever had a negative spirit in here? Yes, I have. At least 3 to 4 times. Last time being earlier this year. And it wasn't really negative. I hate that word negative. God, I hate that word negative. It's the reason I use the term hot. But yeah, we did have a spirit in here that I don't know what the fuck he was trying to do, but he loved freaking us out while sleeping. But Also, with that astral traveling, if you astral travel or anything along the terms of astral travel, contrary to popular belief, technically jumping the hedge, spirit flight are not the same thing as astral travel. Okay, they're different because you're technically projecting two different things out, depending on how you view that. Astral projection, you're jumping to the astral realm. Spirit flight, you're pushing your spirit out of your body, but in a trance-like form. Okay? So it is complex, and that is not something that I would randomly try unless you have experience with projecting yourself out of your body. Um, Now, with that, I've talked to people, and they're like, oh, so like Insidious. Do I believe something like Insidious could happen? Fuck it. The day and age we're living in, it ain't nothing you couldn't tell me couldn't happen. Yeah, it could happen. Could it be rare? Yeah, just like demonic possession, the Catholic demonic possession. It's rare for an actually someone to be fully possessed. And the reason that is because now this is not just with demons, but if a spirit is trying to oppress you or possess you, you have to go through the steps which are known as oppression. Oppression, now when I mean this, I don't just mean demons. Negative spirits who are trying to attach themselves to you will do the same thing. They will cause conflict, so it winds up isolating you. After isolation, it's going to affect your sleep patterns, your eating patterns. It is physically trying to weaken your body and or your energy force to be able to fully slip in, which is why it's called oppression. It's actually oppressing you to make you, to break you down, to boop, slip right in. Okay. Um, and it could be dangerous, but like I said, I've done 2 exorcisms on properties, not people, on properties. And luckily nothing like oh shit moment happened, as in none of us were really hurt. A lot of other crazy shit happened, but one of them was on a farm, so we had animals all over the place going fucking ape shit when in reality they normally shouldn't. Um, but yeah, astral travel or anything like that, if you are projecting yourself out of your body, you need to make sure you are protected and you also know how to get back. Um, because again, you don't want to have anything connected to you or anything like that. Now, another thing that we need to start talking about more is psychokinetic energy buildup. I tend to do this a lot. Primarily, I know this because my partner will sit down in the chair in the kitchen where I used to film at, and he's like, I don't know what it is about this chair, but it's just like you look out the window and you get stuck, where you just want to sit there and look out the window. That's psychokinetic energy buildup. Now, I have been experimenting with trying to remove it. It's going okay, but it's going a hell of a lot difficult than I thought it was. Now, some people would be like, oh, yeah, well, that's why, you bless your house. Yes and no. It depends on how you look at things like this. Psychokinetic energy, in the type that I'm talking about, is the psychic energy, and just in general, our physical energy that it reverts. When you are sensitive or you have other abilities like that, containing your emotions or trying to control your emotions or an outburst of emotion can also send out a wave of psychokinetic energy around you that can slightly start to build up, and if built up in the right environment, it in itself can become, we'll say, self-aware to a degree, as in it in itself can start doing things that spirits do, basically. So it's almost creating a spirit without realizing you're creating a spirit. When most people hear that, they're like, oh, it's creating a poltergeist. Yes and no. Poltergeists are extremely rare too, and in fact, most poltergeists are actually created by kids. To be honest, straight up kids. It's when their bodies start to go through puberty and adolescence, the physical chemicals, just like everybody, it's all over the place. So they, especially if they are already gifted, they can create a poltergeist. And there are a specific list that goes and qualifies something as a poltergeist. Stacking, they're stacking for some fucking reason. They're stacking, there's embodied voices, and a couple other things that can also happen. And they're extremely hard to get rid of because it's not like a hot spirit or a Catholic demon where you just open your Bible and start spewing stuff out, depending on what you believe. So yeah, if you ever have any type of paranormal experiences and you don't want to deal with it yourself, do not automatically call a church. Just don't. Try to find either I don't even want to say paranormal. Try to find another sensitive and or another witch that you also get a good vibe from, and see where that goes, if you yourself can't take care of it yourself. But I would not just go to just straight up throwing holy water and fucking burning all this banishing shit, because unless you can sense what you're actually going against. So, because in my experiences, it can bite you in your ass. But But yeah, wait. Did I miss comments? Yes, the fuck I did. YouTube! Hello, everybody. YouTube! Fix your glitches, man. Hold on, let me go back to these. I promised I was not ignoring y'all. For some reason, I wasn't seeing any of them, and I'm like, oh, okay. Nobody's talking. I'm just going to assume I just read your mind with my previous comment. Oh, you did. Okay, here we go. Hold on, I'm catching up. What's your thoughts on spirit boxes and apps? Oh, I will get to that. Hold on. Oh, these are really good. Let me write some of these down so I don't forget them. Alright, body, going with straight up chicken scratch today. Depends on how old the pennies are. Modern pennies don't have much copper. Usually form from lots of spiritual and ritual activity, especially if trauma is involved. 100% with that. Would you know years that it would have changed? I have quite a few that are earlier than 70s. Yes, actually I do. Instagram post, there's an Instagram post where I talked about that. I got the year wrong, but it was corrected. I want to say it was the, I'll check that and send it to you. But I did research on the copper part about being in it because in Southern Conjure, that's how I learned about it, that certain coins have certain higher qualities of certain metals depending on the years. For years, it was the worst one to cause me to have energy outbursts. Took years to remove. Yes, they suck. They suck. Fucking parasites suck. I use essential oils when I'm not able to get certain herbs, etc. Oh, I love that. I poach herbs out of herbal tea bags. I've done that too. Holy shit, I've done that. And that's a very great way of getting herbs too. Just make sure the herbs that you're getting out of the herbal things is like the mixture that you want. My altar is a state of change right now. My altar's about to be at a state of change. I don't summon anything. They come to me willingly. Oh, I love that. Easier to catch flies with honey than with vinegar. Yes! Books are sugarcoating witchcraft. They 100% are. Hello, Sea Beast! Make sure he has a ward on him. Oh, I definitely will. Well, I'm not going to say what it is, but he definitely does. He's got multiple ones. Okay, there we go. Because love and light sells, and those little experiences are one's writing. That, and I've also realized the other ones that don't do the whole love and light thing, they're the ones that wind up getting accused of, like, stealing other people's things and stuff like that. I will state that I was reading 2 different books, and I'm pretty sure, though, it was just the specific genre of both of those books revolving witchcraft. There were 2 sections that were word for word, but it was also researching an herb. So that would make sense to a degree, because when you research the lore of an herb, especially the specific herbs that I'm talking about, you're going to see similarities. Okay, I'm fully caught up. Here I am about to top drive, so I won't be active in the comments. Okay. I hope you get to your location safely. As long as strategy and nuclear defense continues, nuclear weapons may be reduced, but they will never be eliminated. This is true, too. Now, I could fall down a rabbit hole with the nuclear things. I'm all love and light, dark and shadows. Yes, I love it, which is how it should be, in my opinion. It's balance. I'm sorry, I will always re-quote my favorite witchy movie, which is The Craft. Nature is both loving and cruel. And then another controversial one, which people still need to talk about, which is the other thing that they sell. How do you undo a spell? How do you call back the waters after opening the floodgates? Depending on the spell, theoretically you can, but at the same time, it also depends on when you try to call it back. Like, if you do a spell, I am getting back to the spirit box. If you do a spell and you wait a month and a half after that spell to call it back, you're going to have a harder time calling it back. But if you do a spell, and I've done this before, it was actually one of the very first clients that I'd ever had. It was a learning curve for both of us. I'm not going to go into what the actual workings were, but the second working that I was doing, in the middle of it, I had a fit, like, everything was just off, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. Straight up not doing this. So I contacted them, and I'm like, hey, I'm not doing this. There's something really, really off. There's something that I don't know. At the exact same time I was sending that to them, they turned around and said the exact same thing to me, that they wanted to call it off because they found out that, let's just say, none of it was what it was supposed to be. Put it that way. but I had to actually cancel that energy, and it was a baneful working. It wiped my ass out for about a week after that due to the backlash of that, because you're already collecting up that energy, and then right as you're about to light the match to let it explode outward into the universe, you're having to cancel that shit. Now, what do I believe about spirit boxes and spirit apps? Oh, buckle up for this one. Okay, so for one, if you can actually get your hands on an actual authentic spirit box, yes, I do believe they kind of work. And the reason that is you could theoretically do this with an old school radio, primarily that'll pick up no channels at all. I did a curse and changed my mind later, called the energy back, and suffered for the price. It's called paying the piper. Yes, 100%. But if you were to like get an old school radio and just kind of like slowly move it through, or put it on AM depending on where you're at, so all you're getting is just straight white noise and like weird interferences. That's basically what a spirit box or ghost box is. It's a box that is basically being ciphered through radio frequencies. Which is primarily white noise, but sometimes you get things. The reason I don't like apps is because they can be pre-programmed in the development of the app. Not to mention, okay, so there was this cool phone that my partner had, and the reason it's cool is because it actually did have multiple different types of detectors on it. Like the phone that I have now, it doesn't. But a lot of the phones that you can get where you can put your finger to the back, and it can actually read your vitals, those phones do have the capability of almost having what not EVPs, the other one. Fuck, I always forget the name to this one. It's the, handheld device that, like, fucking makes the loud-ass noise when the energy shifts or when you come across a huge, like, energy thing. Your phone, or some phones, actually do have that in there. So, theoretically, those phones would work. Other phones, though, and this is the kind of, not argument, but this is the double-sided to this, most technology in phones have different types of crystals in it and or other types of materials like that. It's got copper in it. It's got everything that it needs to draw in energy and attract it. I just don't trust the apps. That's hands down, I don't trust the apps. Now, I will state something. On the hauntedest property I've ever lived on in my entire life, and that's saying a lot, and it is still abandoned right now. A rich-ass family bought it, was going to add 3 things to it, and not a single damn thing has been added to that fucking property. They have tried sleeping there in a camper multiple times, and the neighbor that's still next door that my father-in-law knows basically state that normally that RV is pulling out of there either right after dusk and or the following morning, first thing that morning. So it is still very heavily active. But when the house was there, or when the trailer was there, the second bedroom was the workout room. It was when my partner used to work out. He had all his bench pressing shit in there. And that room from the very get-go gave me a really just off vibe. It was like there was something specific staying in that room, and it did not like any interactions. So we got a dish for the first time. I know I'm going into detail. Sorry, I do this. We got dish for the first time. And we had downloaded, before we canceled it, because it's expensive as fuck, we had downloaded recorded all of the Ghost Adventure shows. We were obsessed with them, because I had just introduced it to my partner. So we downloaded multiple different types of apps. Take in mind, he had the phone that I was talking about earlier, to where it did have the technology in it to actually pick up on shit like that. So we start realizing that there are certain patterns that are going on at this property, and it's also affecting us. It's affecting emotions, it's affecting anger. Now, even before I moved there, most females, when they move there, mentally, they start to kind of unravel. And at first, when my partner told me this, I was like, yeah, okay. And then my father-in-law, who is a devout Christian, also told me this. He's seen it with his eyes. So I was like, all right, I still don't know what's on there, but with this particular day, we were walking through the living room, and we came across a hot spot that would actually move throughout the house. As in, you could put your hand right here, and it feels like the heater's on. And this is like midwinter, mid-fall, so it's actually chilled outside. We did not have a heater on. But you could actually like put your hand in it right here and then go down here. It was only in one spot, as in even in the air. Like you could go down lower right here and you wouldn't feel it. And we followed it into that fucking room. It's important to know this room only had one window and it was faced right here. And outside of that was my partner's car. There's a light shortly over off to the side on the property, so it kind of it lit the back of the brakes lights and stuff up red from being inside the room from that light. It lit up red. So we're doing the ghost box, and my partner's like, all right, well, I've got to go to the bathroom. So he goes through our room into the master bath. And I'm sitting there, and I'm talking into the ghost box, not thinking anything's going to fucking come through. And it didn't on the ghost box. But I'm like, is there any, is there anything here? You want to communicate? Like, let's talk. And all of a sudden, out of fucking nowhere, something rushed up behind me, coming from the closet, rushed up behind me, got right here at my ear, and did the weirdest fucking mixture between a hiss and a growl at the same time. When I tell you my ass jumped 1.5 feet in the fucking air, I'm not even fucking joking you. My body and my blood went cold, while at the same time I had so much fucking goosebumps it wasn't even funny. So as I land back on the ground, I look out the window and see something physically dart past my eye. It went just through the window. At that and I have head to toe fucking chills talking about this, by the way. But at the exact same moment, something went past the window, like ran past the window, and it was a physical body in the sense that it covered up the red glow that was coming off of my partner's brake lights. So, like, and when I tell you, after I saw that, it took me 2 steps and a hop to be completely in the bathroom where my partner was at. I shit you not, scared the absolute shit out of me, because I've experienced a lot of things in paranormal. That, on the other hand, I had never fucking experienced. Because I felt everything straight up. It felt like somebody was charging after me, stopped, did the whole fucking hiss/growl, and then boom. But on that property, we had a little bit of everything. We had an infestation. That infestation would act up. And what I mean by this was I had a painting of a goddess, which I eventually sold in a consignment shop. I had a painting of a goddess that was hung up on my side of the room where my altar was at. The infestation would not go anywhere near that bitch, but it was everywhere else. And we realized that the infestation got worse as the spiritual activity picked up and got worse. We still don't know what it was. We did have somebody come on the property, and they're like, besides multiple different types of spirits out here, it's primarily like, say, 12 years of psychokinetic energy buildup. And you have to think, at least one death did take part on that property in modern times, and then doing research, we discovered that it was actually part of a giant ass plantation down here in Florida. So God knows what happened on it there. My Fitbit sometimes picks up heartbeats when I'm not wearing it. Okay, that would scare the shit out of me. One of my earliest mentors was one of my oldest cousins. She stayed with me for a week when we were teenagers and went down to the bathroom around 2 a.m. She came running back in because... Oh, I love hearing this. And see, there's actually a book by the author of the podcast that we're talking about, something witchcraft. I think it's by the same author. They came out with one, but it's actually called The Witch's Paranormal Guide. I'm so fucking excited to be able to get my hands on that book because I've never seen a book like that. So, like, it's a paranormal depiction, but that person is also a witch. So it's very, very interesting of how it's going to go. At the bottom of the stairs, something like white feathery static rushed her face. I've had that experience with spirits with the staticky thing. She wouldn't go anywhere in that house without me after that. I wouldn't either. I've had a lot of weird shit happen, and even shit that I never got verified, besides, like, second party. So, me and my mom, we had moved into, technically down here in Florida, it would be a slumlord's house, which this was, but this tiny little trailer park. And this trailer was, like, built out in the 70s, possibly the 60s. But it was really small. And there was something about the fucking hallway. So when we first stayed there, I walked down the hallway, and I was young, like, very young at this point. I was around 11 or 12, I think. Around the time I started getting into witchcraft, actually. A little bit smaller than that. I'd say 10. We'll say 10. And fucking night or day, but it got worse at night. You walk down this small ass hallway, and it feels like hundreds of eyes are just like reeling into you, like drilling into you, just watching you. And there was one room in that trailer that I would not go anywhere near because I didn't like it. I did not like the vibe that it gave me. Um, and I never said anything to my mom until we moved out. And I was like, yeah, you know, I don't know what it is, but, and she finished my sentence. She's like, yeah, it felt like there were people watching you. And I'm like, fuck yeah. The other location that I lived in was a house. It's one of the few times we actually stayed in a house. Um, so where the property ended in the backyard, it ended in this weird way, but it ended at a barn. I was notified, and we were notified that that barn, a lover suicide pact had went wrong, and 2 people had passed away in it. Now, what's even creepier than this is on the same property, they had a well that they actually built up to where it looks like the well from the fucking Ring. That's also directly outside my back window. My room in that house, it was one of the houses, I don't know the architecture type, but it was one of the houses where they had the really, really high ceilings. And there's this one room, the only room in the fucking house, it looked like fucking we're back on the prairie because all of it was wood. And I'm not talking about like the wood you see that's in the house now, the wood paneling. No, I mean actual different types of wood built up the ceiling, the wall, and the roof. You could not tell where one began and the other ended. Um, and there was a church. So you have a pasture like outside this window of my house, of my room. It kind of goes, and then you get a fence, and then it goes through a pasture as it's slowly going up a hill, and then at the very top of the hill, there's a cemetery with a church and a graveyard and an old school community center. Well, on the dirt road that this is connected to, apparently a drug deal went really, really bad, and 2 people got decapitated and or were found decapitated on the property. Or not the property, but the actual road that's in the dirt road. So we're staying there, and the very first night that I'm actually in my bed in my room, I had a hard time going to sleep because you look out this window and you see the fucking little fucking creepy looking well. You look out this window and it's this weird lighting, thanks to the street light up there, of a fucking church up on a hill. So, like, very creepy areas, especially for me, because this is when I was just now getting out of my scared shitless, as in my own damn shadow could scare the shit out of me. And I actually started getting kind of loving it, loving Halloween, loving spooky shit. Um, and that night, I will never forget this experience because I cannot explain it. My bed started shaking. I don't mean it's like lifting up in the air. That bitch started shaking like I thought we were going through an earthquake, except for we're in Alabama. There is no earthquakes. It wasn't a truck going by. It wasn't an 18-wheeler going by. I have no fucking idea what it was, but it scared the teetotal shit out of me. To the point where I ran out of my room and ran into my mother's room and was like, yo, I'm sleeping on the couch because my bed just moved. I don't know what it is, but I'm not revisiting it tonight. Slept on the couch, went to work, went to school. Or I went to school the next day. What's also weird about that was for the first time in my entire life, knock on fucking wood, spiders, we are on the same page now. I actually got bit by a spider and had to go to the fucking ER about it, and they could not tell me what it was. And it hurt, because if you did not know this, depending on the spider bite, they may, in fact, dig into it to try to pull shit out of it. And the only thing they did was they pulled this little white little ball-looking thing out of it. They sent it to the labs, and then I never heard a thing again. But in that house, you would always hear footsteps, and it was almost like here, where you could walk up to, like, I'd walk past my mom's door, when she was at work. I was the only one there. I'd walk past her door, and it sounded like in the distance you heard 2 people chattering. And then you open the door, and you felt like, you know, when you were younger and you walk in on like a teacher, or you walk in on your parents talking, like you're not supposed to be there. Same thing. And here we have the same thing. There's 2 bedrooms, at nighttime, sometimes in the day too. You can walk past it, or you can almost start walking down the hallway, and it sounds like 2 people are whispering, but distantly. And then you walk up to the door, and it gets quieter. The closer you get to it, the quieter it gets. But when you open the door, again, it's like you just walked in on a conversation you were not supposed to be a part of. And what's even weirder was we found out, and we even still have the crucifix, or the cross. The guy who moved out of this, or eventually lived here before we got the property, was a preacher. there's a giant giant white cross in my neighbor's yard that was already there when they bought their property. Um, so let's just say when I first moved in here, there was a lot of things that I had to do. Why is everyone mad at you on TikTok? I'm so lost. Hello! And, okay, so the reason people are mad at me on TikTok, I was not going to talk about this, but fuck it. I didn't do anything wrong. I made 3 different videos. Technically 4 if you want to respond to the comment that I responded to, but I made that private. In those videos, I bring what I call bitchy energy. You know, the really, really passionate, or to me it's passion. It's straight up passion. But some of the things that I mentioned in that video, just like multiple other times that I've went through this, somebody shared that video to other people, and they took parts of that video, and apparently the shoe fit them, so they started talking shit behind my back. Also, one of the things is the situation that I talked about. I never mentioned any names, but there's a particular situation going on that I believe people are taking way too far, and that was one of the comments, because I got called a pansy ass. So I blocked that person and responded to the comment and was like, look, you're taking this way too far. And that's when everybody said that I'm agreeing with that person and I don't listen to BIPOC community or anything like that, and I'm a racist. When in reality, I don't also believe, I'm not even siding with the person that was about. I was just saying everything's being taken too far. And then somebody that I used to be mutuals with that I blocked because I personally just got to a point where I did not like seeing their videos. And they found that video, or that video was sent to them, because apparently if I have them blocked, how the fuck did they see a video? But I also blocked them, like 2 months ago. Anyways, all of that happening, so videos are being shared between people that fucking think that I was talking about them in the video, when in reality, I just spoke shit. But originally it was supposed to be debunking shit on Witch Talk. And apparently people do not like hearing that, or people do not like hearing my truth. That's currently why everybody's pissed off at me on TikTok. And I'm at the point right now, I don't care. I didn't hurt anybody's feelings. I didn't call anybody out. It's not my place to. I didn't insult anybody. I wasn't racist. I didn't do anything except for speak what I see as truth. And a lot of my actual people who know me saw that as passion, because that is passion. That was not anger. That was not being bitchy. The first one was, because the first one was an experiment. If I brought that energy, which I originally used on all of my platforms on TikTok, which is how I got most of my followers, or at least it's how some of my videos blew up, was the energy that I brought behind those videos. And as always, and how the internet works, people took it out of content, and yeah. So, but like I said, I don't care, because right now all they're doing is sending energy to me. They're replaying my face on their profile. They're replaying my name. Boom. Please post this. I'm about to get out of the car. Oh, I am. This is actually going to stay up and posted. The paranormal talk was too good for me not to post it. But yeah, that's why people are upset. Thank you. I had a lot of people say the same thing, but again, that specific technically, I heard 2 people. Hold on, I gotta respond to a text message. But somebody sent me a message saying 2 people were talking about me, and then I actually saw 2 of the videos. So, yeah, that's what everybody's doing about. And like I said, I spoke my truth. Everybody has that option, and if they disagree with that, well, then they disagree with that. Thank you. But yeah, so that's why, but I'm going to stop doing it. I'm just going to do those, and if I do any more videos like that, I'll make sure to make sure it's less personal. That's the only way I think I can put that. But yeah, that's why people on TikTok are pissed off at me. And that's on my second account, not my first account. Technically my backup account. But luckily I have a community that also helps to remind me that I'm not here to make everybody happy. And I'm gonna say things like I said in the video. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and not everybody's my cup of tea. And that's okay. So, but hold that thought. I have to get me some more water. Wait, how long have I been live? I'll probably go for like 30 more minutes, and then there's a very good chance I'll jump back on this live a little bit later on today because it's Florida, which means regular scheduled thunderstorms between like 3, 4, and 5. So, hold on. And nobody judged the chair. I have a cat. And let's just say he did not respect my boundaries with not scratching the fuck out of this. Okay, I'm back. Not to mention with the chair thing, they came from Goodwill? They either came from Goodwill or the Salvation Army before we moved in here. So, but yeah, Ghost Box and shit like that, they could work, they could not work. I would not spend any money on any apps. If you were to do that, you might as well just go ahead and go out and get a tape recorder. That can also work, but it does work different because if you're doing a tape recorder, then you're just getting an electric EVP, electric vocal phenomenon. Electric voice phenomenon. There we go. I like that you typically start out the drama, everyone is fighting and no one is teaching anymore. Right? And I've actually been accused of starting drama. And I was like, how the fuck did I start drama? I'm not the one sharing the videos back and forth with people talking about it. But yes, I try my best to. I'm a 57-year-old with over 30 years experience in witchcraft. I just want to say that I have mad respect for you. You really know your stuff. Thank you, thank you. Get the cat, they said. I have 4 inside and 2 outside. Nothing is safe. They're really not. I will state this is the only thing he does that on. And there has been one journal that I had to put away because it was like, I guess the same texture and he just went to town on it. What? It's okay. He's actually like right next to me on my toolbox, my witchy toolbox that he eats and drinks water on. But yeah, no, if you have cats, nothing is safe. Nothing at all. My altar, I've came home multiple times the days that I go in work or when I go to work with my partner, we will come back and normally he is on the edge of my altar meowing at me. My new kitty is a terror and destroying everything. Oh, I love that. Not that they're destroying it, but they have that energy and everything. The cats are doing that outside, but luckily there's really nothing on the porch that they can destroy. And they're doing good. The kittens are doing good. Now, I will state, because this is the 3rd day that he's not came up, I'm pretty sure Mr. Gremlins has left the property. I've not seen him in 3 days, and normally the cats don't wander. So he may have, like, I don't know, came into heat, got a sniff of something he liked. I don't know, but I have not seen him. But all the other ones are still here. So Soot, Ace, Mama, Grandpa, Gemini, which is weird because that's just weird. Anyways, Gemini and then the kittens. And 3 of the kittens, hopefully, we will be getting rid of and only keeping 1 of them because it's the white Siamese. And I'm obsessed because I've never had a Siamese cat. And I want one. So, my cats usually leave the tops of my altar alone. He sleeps under it, though. I think the reason he sometimes gets up on here is the drawer directly up under it also stores his catnip. But it's the highest spot in here in the room that we sleep in, so I think it's just he likes getting up there. I wish mine would leave the altars alone. My crystal bowls are their pillows. It's so cute, though. Oh! I've actually got to get a storage for my fucking crystals. Because right now, and this is not a flex either, because actually a lot of y'all sent me them. I currently have 2 baskets, 3 boxes, and a suitcase. And I'm not even joking or exaggerating. I do mean a suitcase that are full of crystals. Not like jam-packed, but that's where I'm storing them at. Because I don't have any place to put them. I've got to get some type of display cabinet to put them in. Because like I only use a certain crystals, and most of the crystals that I do use are on my altar. But I also started my crystal collection when I started this, and what they say with crystals, it's for one, you do not need crystals to perform witchcraft. They can help or assist it, and they themselves, crystals in themselves, are magical. But Etsy, now the shop that I originally ordered from, they're no longer. I don't think they're still. They kind of went. They closed shop during the Pomerama, but you can go on there for like $9, $9 or $10, and get a pound of like crystals, whether that's rough cut, tumbled. That's how I started my collection, and then it kind of just like obsessively became a collection. Oh, how's the Herkimer Diamond testing you? I fucking love it, and actually, now I will say one piece. I have lost one tiny piece to it, and I do not know how, but I looked at it one day. It's no longer there, which is that piece right there. But it's doing good. I either carry it with me 24/7, as in it's either in my pocket, up under my pillow, and or in my bag with me. Um, and the fire opal. Oh, and actually, the box that came with that you sent, actually, and this is going to be funny, because it actually is funny, um, it holds one of my special charms that I created, but it also holds all of my crystal dicks. So I have a box of dicks. I go to a binary mineral show here. See, I want to go to one. Oh, another thing to also do with that too. Your local thrift stores and or flea markets. I found this, which is a smoky quartz celestial and possibly identified as either candle quartz or candle wax quartz and or alligator quartz, but it's a celestial. I got this for $12 because the woman had no idea, and she told me that she's like, I know that like crystals are worth things, but $12, I think it was $12, 12 or 15. So thrift stores and flea markets, you never know when you're gonna wind up coming across that perfect crystal bender. But yeah, I love it. And then with the correspondence book, I learned of correspondences that goes to Herkimer Diamonds, which is cool because I've been kind of using it like that, and then I just got slightly validated with it. Um, I also use it to help with some of my spells that I do, especially the healing spells. But yeah, my really really good friend Kat sent me some crystal dicks, and I got to say I like them. Primarily just because I laugh. I'm immature sometimes, so I laugh every single time I see them in a spell. Um, and then I looked at my partner one day and I was like, "Hey, come check out my box of dicks." He was like, "What?" And I was like, "Crystal dicks." So, but yeah. And then that's right next to a ganache statue or a ganache crystal that I was sent. They all kind of hang out together. Sorry for the shakiness. I have to check that tweet that just came out. Holy shit. Alrighty then. Okay, there we go. I get most of my weather updates from Twitter. But yeah, you can also find stuff outside as well. Like I also have an actual rock collection, which mostly are just like rocks. Um, and then I also, which I need to show, I need to make a video on it, which is my more obscure collection. Um, Things that are in that obscure collection is a bottle of dirt that was sent to me, which I'm not naming the dirt, but a bottle of dirt that was sent to me. Um, Trigger warning for this: domestic violence slash and or unaliving. Glass. I'm supposed to be sent a voodoo doll. When I mean voodoo doll, I do not mean an actual voodoo doll. More along the lines of a doll that was possibly bought from New Orleans as a souvenir, and something may and may not be in it. That's supposed to be sent to me, and then I have a couple other things that may be sent to me. So I started this collection of curios, technically, of very, very random weird shit, because I have my garden, my death garden, which is a mixture of mummified frogs, lizards, dead insects, actual bones, and then I have my frozen specimens, which I have not forgot about. I've been having issues getting all of the ingredients that I need. But I have a rattlesnake's heart that I collected myself from a rattlesnake that had recently been hit and there was no saving it. Um, and then the rest of the remains went back into the earth. I have a couple of rabbit's feet that was like humanely hunted, and I also have the entire body of that rabbit, but I have not cooked it yet because I don't know how to cook rabbit, but I'm gonna learn that too. But yeah, the rabbit's feet I'm actually going to cure into actual rabbit's feet. And then there is one thing that I can show you. Obviously, there are other things that I will not show, but there is something I can show you. Ah! I have two of these. And then I have a shit ton of wasp collections. The biggest one I was gifted last weekend, and when I mean big, it's literally slightly bigger than my hand. Like the full circumference of my hand. That's a wasp nest. And like I said, I have a lot of other curios that I will not show online. But yeah, I love collecting curios. They're weird, they're fun, and eventually I'll probably have some type of weird thing. Now with the murder glass or domestic violence glass, that shit was so toxic and so just nah. When I took it out of the box for the first time, I held it in my hand, looked at my partner, and said, "Nope, not doing this today," and stuck it back down there. Went to Dollar General and got a box and created a binding box, and that's where it stays. And then the other jar of dirt, special dirt, also stays in a glass jar that it came into. So, and one day I will let y'all know what that is. But until then, y'all know me. I like keeping certain things. And then I also have a goodie box that was sent to me of just natural things found out in the wild. Um, with the help of Loki. Not helping me, but helping the person that helped collect them with Loki. So yeah, and I encourage people to not to collect weird things like that, but to if you come across like an empty bird's nest, obviously make sure the bird's not in it. Like interesting fact, hummingbird. Did you know hummingbirds use spider webs and cobwebs and hair in their practice? I mean, practice. Wow, in their nest, but the reason that is so the nest can actually expand with the actual babies that's being born. What? But yeah, collecting things like that you can use in your practice. Nest. What is a nest? It's a home. What else can a nest also hold? It can hold an infestation because birds also get like lice and stuff like that. So many things. A prime example, and we have them here, earwigs. I actually have one frozen in the refrigerator. Earwigs. You can use them. You know the little bugs that have the pinchers that supposedly they'll crawl up into your ear? They can bite. I will say that because I've been bitten by one. But you can collect those and use them in your practice. If somebody's talking shit behind your back. Multiple other things you can use that for. Fire ant eggs. Although I did find out, be careful freezing some insects because at any point in time, if they thaw, they will come back to life, as in they go into like a cryo state. But I've used ants, and I had a very weird experience because I don't think the type of ants that I collected and froze were supposed to come back, but they damn sure did. Ant eggs can also be used. That's more of Appalachian folk magic. Ant hill dirt can also be used. And depending on the ants that you collected from, depending on how you use them. Um, and I like talking about this because it expands people's knowledge. They're like, oh shit, wait, no, I can use that. Dirt dauber's nest, you can use that. Use the hell out of that. And when I mean that, I'm not talking just baneful workings. When people hear like wasp's nest, they're all like, oh my god, baneful. No. With every item you find in witchcraft, you are going to have a negative and positive reaction. In other words, for every positive thing you could see using that for, I guarantee you there's at least the exact amount of the negative aspects you could use that to. My partner blew my mind. Again, he's a witch without accepting he's a witch. His mother was a witch. To the point where he even had a conversation with a family member. And after he got done, that family member was questioning it very hard. But he looked at me and he's like, well, can't you use this? And it was Creeping Virginia, I think is what it's called. He's like, can't you use this? And I was like, what would I use that for? And he looked at me and he goes, it's a vine. It creeps everywhere. It's a nuisance to most people. And in America, it's known as a nuisance weed. Can you not use that in your practice? And I looked at him and I was like, what do you mean? He goes, it's a nuisive. So just, you're putting that weed, that nuisive ass weed that grows everywhere and climbs on everything and seeps into all the tiny little, it's a creeper, Virginia creeper. There we go. Virginia creeper. It creeps everywhere and just, it can destroy houses due to the fact that the way it connects to it, like, it's fucked up, right? Use that in that. Use that in that spell. Whether it's negative or positive, use it in your spell. Boom. Which this isn't like new news. If you have wildfires, collect that dirt. Fucking, you could continue and just go on and on. If you do have a place where anything happened like that, like I said earlier with collecting the dirt, even if it's a haunted location or anything like that, you can collect the dirt from it because it's still going to have that emotional attachment. There's a reason that Zach Baggins, and I believe he set all of this up and he knew exactly what he knew exactly what he was planning, but there's a reason he has all these physical items, or even a fucking window from the demon house. There's a reason he has them inside one specific building. It's actually a theory that me and my partner came up with. Buy a property, hook every type of equipment that you could hook up into that house and just record everything. But there's a reason, because emotions and spirits and other things or psychokinetic energy can attach themselves to those objects. So if you do go thrift shopping, or if you go antiquing, before bringing the piece of furniture inside or on your property, cleanse it. There's actually a YouTuber on here who had the same thing. I'm trying to think of their names, but they're very good friends, or were good friends. I think they still are, with the Witch of Wonderlust. They actually had that experience. Like, they had just recently received this piece of antique, and they realized that, well, there was a little bit more added to it than they originally wanted to, but it's just because, I mean, think about it. Most of us have some type of favorite object, or even crystal, right? So, or say specifically furniture. Say it's a writing desk, right? So we spend most of our lives at that writing desk. And what are you physically doing at a writing desk or any other thing? It can be a makeup mirror or anything like that. We are physically exerting energy when we do physical things. It's the reason witches tell you, hey, do research. We're not saying that to bury your heads in a book. We're saying that because you're also, what? Exerting physical energy into what you're trying to do, which is grow your craft. But if you're doing that to that actual piece of furniture, over time, you grow a connection to it. So depending on how it happens when you pass away, not necessarily all of your spirit is connected to it, but you can still have essence connected to that, and it holds that. And that's one of the reasons, like the whole Dybbuk box, that's not a real thing. It's not true. And it's actually, in fact, very, it's not right. The term is not racist. But it's very, it leaves a very negative reflection on the Jewish community, specifically Jewish mysticism. And I've researched the hell out of that. So, like, I wouldn't just say that. Now, with that being said, could you actually come across something that could possibly be contained, or a spirit being contained in it? Well, yeah, almost anything's possible. But the original story of a Dybbuk box, it was not true. It was made up. And now everybody who has a haunted box says it's a Dybbuk box. No, it's not. It may be a cursed box or a cursed object, but it's not a Dybbuk box. It's extremely hard to be able to, or even to try to lock a spirit and or contain a spirit in a physical object. Shit, it's even hard to do it in a crystal. And if you don't get the right crystal and the bit shatters, and yes, that is a possibility, you're fucked. You're just straight up fucked. So, obviously. And what's really cool, though, is there are one or two paranormal shows of the people. They actually do try to use crystals and lasers and stuff like that, because they're actually experimenting to see what actually works and what doesn't. They've even went as far as to actually show degree or frequencies, or using different frequencies and things like that. So, and inherently, ghost hunting and or paranormal work and spiritual work, normally you do wind up seeing at least, they know at least one witch that can come in when they're kind of, it's out of their control. And that's also because most witches, not only are we sensitive, but we can also fucking manipulate energy. So, with that being said, though, I am going to go because I have to eat. Okay. The weather's good so far. Knock on wood. But yeah, and if at any point in time it's 3:05, so literally within the next 2 hours, if you get a notification, that's why. And it'll be another just, this will be different. But yeah, thank y'all so much for everybody who has watched, who has commented, subscribed, liked, all of that. Seriously, thank you. And I should be doing this tomorrow again, and I should possibly be doing this later on tonight as well, or in the evening. But yeah, if at any point in time you'll ever have any questions and you cannot reach me on any other social platforms, you can email me at firelotusthewitch@gmail.com. Just put in the subject what it is: reading, consultation, magical question, custom spell work. Just let me know. And yeah, until then, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace. Wait. Oh, sorry. I'm not going yet. Ah! I hate this so much sometimes. Hold that thought. What is the main difference between cemetery dirt and crossroad dirt? Okay. Oh, wait. Okay. So we're going a little bit longer because, again, it did that stupid shit where, like, I didn't see anything. So my understanding of the difference between cemetery dirt and or graveyard dirt, because there is a difference between a graveyard and a cemetery. The only difference is one of them have a church on that. The other one is just graves. But, for one, it depends on what you're trying to do with it. But specifically, graveyard dirt or crossroad dirt in general is more of a meeting place and or a linear space. It is a complete in-between space. And not to mention all the lore that you have of it all around the world and multiple different types of spiritual practices. So again, it depends on why you're trying to collect it. Graveyard dirt or cemetery dirt, and there's different degrees of this. And if you're still watching this, you're about to learn something unless you've read this book I've not heard or came across any other fucking book. When it comes to actual graveyard dirt from somebody's grave, I did not know that it depending on where you collect it from. So we're going to look at a body laying down, right? Head, mouth, shoulder, lungs, if you will, feet, left side, left or right side. All of those three things also go into the effects of what you're trying to actually collect it for. But cemetery dirt, it is also like a crossroad, but it's slightly different because it has 10 times more spiritual activity amplified to it. And what the paranormal conversation that we just had, what have we learned about places that have a lot of spiritual activity? Over time, a lot of other shit is very, very drawn and attracted to it. So those would be the difference that I would say. And again, it depends on how you're using them, because you can collect graveyard dirt and cemetery dirt. That's not collecting it from someone's grave. But you do have to ask permission and make sure you don't piss anybody off, because every graveyard has... I originally thought it was at least one guardian, but I've heard that it could be multiple guardians. So watch out with that. Add a few quartz crystals shatter. What can you do with the wasp nest protection? Wasp nest protection. Well, what does the wasp nest do for the young? It also protects them. So you can literally use that as a physical protection, as in what happens when you go towards a wasp nest. The wasps, due to instinct, because they're protecting their young, they go to attack. So you can use that as the symbol of protection and set it up to where if someone does try to go over that protection, they could basically, it gets thrown back to them. Same with a bird's nest. You can use a bird's nest as protection. Now, in a baneful way, it's the exact opposite of that. What is that? And you squash it. So, the Green Witch. In the wrong doses, medicine can be poisonous, and poison can become medication in the right dose. Oh my god, yes! I love that. 100%. Hummingbirds are now witches. I love it. Yes! You were already on the topic, so what exactly defines a crossroad? Okay, yes, I love this. Okay, so my understanding of crossroad, a lot of people, when they hear the terms crossroad, they automatically think of a four-way. And I did this too. But also, two things, because I did this on TikTok. I hyperfixated on the term crossroad. I think of a physical location. Multiple things can be a crossroad, but specifically, it is where one or two paths intersect and split. So whether that is you're walking down this one path and it splits two different ways. It's the in-between. It's a in-between. It's a linear space. And the term crossroad, depending on the practitioner, can also be applied to that as well. Walking between two trees that are perfectly lined up. That in itself can also become a crossroad. Um, it depends on what type of, I almost said witch you are, but it's not even that. It depends on the path that you're on. Now, like I said, crossroads, they are linear spaces, but they're also important spots through the folklore of it, um, of basically meeting with other spirits, possibly conjuring other spirits. Now, when I use the term conjure, I don't necessarily mean you're summoning them as much as you're bringing them forth. Um, but you can make deals, you can make pacts. Now, again, it depends on the type of witch. A traditional witch, the most aspect that you would wind up meeting at a crossroad would be or would be the witch father and or witch mother. But a crossroad can be one. It can be a three-way section, a four-way, and just in general an in between. But specifically, you got to think way back then, people, they crossroads were normally where you'd have a sign up meeting and stuff like that. It depends on the practice, because in hoodoo and voodoo, they have the similar beliefs. Just like Hecate, she is the leader, or she is the keeper of keys, the keeper of the crossroads. A crossroads is just meaning a different, multiple choices and or a meeting point or a intersectional point that creates a linear space, a space in between, whether that is in between this world and the spiritual world, vice versa. But the in between, like I said, it could be where two trees perfectly line up together naturally. It could be where vortexes or crystals are at. And the reason that you would want to use that or possibly use that in your practice is because some practitioners use the crossroads like a Wiccan uses a circle. You can literally use it for protection and to create that sacred space. That's another reason witches use the circle or cast a circle, is not just for protection, but it's also because you, as a weaver of the webs, are creating a space in between time. A space that's not necessarily in time, but is not necessarily out of time. It's in both. And I know I keep saying the linear space weird. I'm not trying to. But that is my definitions of crossroads. And yes, again, crossroads they don't necessarily actually have to be physically roads as much as a very powerful and or Prescott of view right now, because the word that I'm looking for is on the tip of my tongue. I almost want to use hollowed ground, but it's not hollowed ground. That's also one of the differences between cemeteries and crossroad dirt. Cemeteries or graveyards are known as hollowed grounds. When a lot of people think of that, they automatically think of a church. Well, like I said, there's a difference between cemeteries and graveyards. I think it's graveyards that actually have a church, and cemeteries don't. Yeah, that's what it is. Graveyards are connected to a church, cemeteries are not. Yes, because that explains why the bigger grave plots are called cemeteries, and normally they have the place where you do the ritual or the ritual. Wow, you do the mourning process and all of that, but it's still hollowed ground, and the reason that is due to the spiritual connections there. Some practitioners believe that certain spirits will actually hang around their grave slots, for one, to be able to possibly see their loved ones be reunited with them. But you also come across certain graves that actually still have the spiritual energy in there, and they're known as active spots. Because if you tap into that, you can get a lot out of it, but you're not necessarily tapping into the spirit and or the soul of it as much as the, in a way, psychokinetic energy of it. Because I always thought that, and actually the book that I just got through reading, Mountain Conjure, I think it's Mountain Conjure because I reread it, it explained that in there that, because I always ask the question, why does everybody think cemeteries and graveyards are haunted? Because that, to me, when I hear that, that indicates that when a spirit when a spirit dies, they just kind of hang out with their body. And that could explain some of the transitional time of when you have someone in your life passes away versus when you actually hear from them on the spiritual plane. But they'd explain that some of them just it's not really like they're trapped. They just kind of stay there, so it becomes inactive, as in the energy there is very active, and it can be extremely volatile, but also extremely powerful, depending on what you're trying to do. Um, Now, that also kind of blurs the lines between now. Hold on. I'm thinking about this as I say this, because if I say this the way that I want to say it, it can be construed different ways. It's the newer term, or what we're talking about, kind of. I think some of the remnants of kinetic funeral rites and afterlife beliefs. Oh, yes, I love that. I love that. And I believe that. And that's kind of what I was trying to say, but it's also with death magic or being a death witch. This is where I have to very, very make sure I say certain things, because there are certain practices that are known as, or certain, practices that are kind of known as, they'll call themselves death doulas. I am not a death doula, but I am a death witch. Now, another young or older term for that is necromancer. Death witch is basically the new age, which is good, the new age term for a necromancer, depending on the death magic you're doing. So I'm a psychopomp, which means that I do have the ability to not summon death, but to be able to help call death near to help a spirit pass on. And I know that may sound cool sounding to certain people who it's not. It fucking sucks, okay? It full on sucks. It's beautiful and amazing, but it literally is the definition of dread. You're literally meeting death, if you will, or the essence of death. So you're basically, you have the ability to be able to help the spirit cross over. That's not what I focus on. But there are some people that do death magic. That is the only thing they do. Now, the one question I cannot answer, or I can, but a lot of people are not going to like it, which is, oh, can you just wake up, work with dead people, and that, or you work with your ancestors and you work with spirits, and that makes you a death witch? In my definition, no. Yes, I work with my ancestors, but I consume myself in dead, whether that's working with dead animals, dead instincts, and insects, whether that is working with spirits constantly, but you don't fall into becoming a death worker or a death witch. It finds you. As in, you wind up following that path without realizing what path you're following until it just kind of comes natural to you. And I still have a very, very long way to go when it comes to death magic, or being a death witch, which, again, I don't use that title because I'm a witch who does different types of magic. That's how I think witchcraft is. It's witchcraft with different flavors, whether that's strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, and every other flavor in between. Um, but as a witch, we're weavers. We manipulate the energy around us. We manipulate the realities around us. We can conjure. We can invoke. So many things, and people imitate themselves from. But I think I answered everything correctly. I almost got slightly sidetracked too. But yeah, it depends on the definition of crossroads that you look into. Some people will physically mean a crossroad, or other points will just mean an in between, and or a crossroad of your life or your spiritual journey. Note though, just like graveyards or cemeteries, I'm not going to say there's a guardian, but there is normally primarily one source or one specific spirit that will be there. Now, with that, and if you go to a physical crossroad, especially if it is spiritually active, know that a lot of trickster spirits and or hitchhikers are also there. Hitchhikers are just they're trying to get to A to B, but kind of what some people think of fae as like tricksters. And I have to use the term trickster specifically because, again, depending on the witch or depending on the practice, the term trickster may be slightly different. Like Loki, he's a trickster spirit. That doesn't mean he's evil or negative. But if you use the term trickster in a spiritual aspect, as in you're talking about a spirit, depending on the person, they're going to think you're talking about a negative spirit. Not all negative spirits are actually negative. And it's one of the reasons I made that comment about too much protection is a bad thing, because I've personally received messages from hot spirits or negative spirits, what most people will perceive as negative, sometimes it takes that specific energy in order to relay that specific message to you. And normally, when something like that happens, they relay the message and they kind of just go away. Like, they don't always just hang out and, like, terrorize you. Thank you so much. You're a great live. Gotta go. Busted. Of course, of course. And thank y'all for asking so many questions, because y'all know me. That's how my brain works. ADHD is a bitch until you learn to use it to your advantage. I was about to say control it, but use it to your advantage. And with that, I'm also going to go. I wanted to make sure I hate living people and not being able to read their comments or anything like that. Not to mention, oh, it's a 1 hour, or it's an hour and 44-minute long. About to be 1 hour and 45 minutes. So yeah. But yeah, as always, you ever want to contact me, the link tree will be listed below too, so you can follow me on all of the platforms. And the email listed below, you can contact me at any point in time, and as soon as I get it, if I can, I'll answer it. And until then, like I said before, thank y'all so much for the likes, the shares, the comments, the follows, and everything. Until then, peace.